Hey, hello friends, and welcome to this new Flutter tutorial. In this we're going to be taking a look at creating responsive web pages using Flutter. So this is the example of the page that we're going to be creating today, and you can see that there is a nav bar and some content on the left hand side and a nice image on the right hand side. And as the page shrinks itself, you can see that the content shifts itself to fill the area that is given to it by the device. So this is the type of page that we are targeting in this tutorial. And okay, so let's get started. Okay, so right now I'm in a new Flutter web project that is created using this procedure here, given on the official Flutter website, that is at flutter.dev/docs/getstarted/web. So you can follow these exact steps to create this project that I have created here. What you get is this HTML file, index.html, and this main.dart file. This main.dart file resembles the web page that you get when you create a new Flutter project, the regular one. So the command you need to run this website is flutter run/d and the browser that you have installed. So they basically recommend you to use Chrome because right now they have optimized some things for Chrome only, but okay, so this is the way you run it, and when you press enter it takes a bit of time. Okay, so now the page is running and you can see that you have this basic web app that is given to you by the default Flutter web project. Okay, so as I press the plus button, you can see that the state changes and the number is incremented by 1 each time. So okay, we don't really need this right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove this my home page. I need to delete this code right now because we'll create this by ourselves. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this new my home page again. So let's start with a stateless widget. Stateless widget, and what I'm going to do is my home page. Okay. And I'm using Visual Studio this time to create this project. I can't really find the support for Flutter Web on the Android Studio, so this is the first time that I'm using the Visual Studio code for Flutter. Okay, so right now I have this container here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this and add a scaffold in place of it. Scaffold, and add a body in this. And in the body I'm going to add a container. So what we need to develop is we need to create this page, and we need to create it responsive as I showed you previously. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create this sort of gradient, or we should create a nav bar. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create this gradient as I'm in the container. So okay, so in the container what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a decoration and add a box decoration here, box decoration. And in the box decoration, I'm going to add a gradient. For the color, I'm going to add a linear gradient. And in the linear gradient, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a beginning. Add a beginning of alignment dot center left, maybe center left, and end of alignment dot center right. And for the colors, I have the colors here. So we're going to add an array, a list of colors that is going to be color.fromRGB. We have the color code here. I have this here like 195, 20, 50, and we're going to keep the opacity at 1.0. That is full. And for the second color, I'm going to add color.fromRGBO. And we're going to add 36, 36, 11, and for the third color I'm going to add 54, and for the opacity it's going to be 1.0. So these are the background gradient colors that we need. So the first thing that we need to do is, after adding the gradient, I'm going to add a child. Sorry, not here. After the decoration, I need to add a child in the container, and the child is gonna be a column, basically column. Okay. So why we need the column here is because we need to create a nav bar here, and below that we need this landing page content, that is the center content. So for creating a nav bar, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new folder here in the lib folder, and I'm going to name it nav bar. Okay, so in the nav bar, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file that is navbar.dart. Okay, so in the navbar.dart, I need to create a new stateless widget that is the navbar. So what I'll do is I'll use the shortcut, well, add the stateless widget, and I'll name it navbar. I don't really need the constructor. And so basically what we need to do is we also need to import the material. I forgot, well, I'll add the material.dart file here. And what I also need to do is I need to make this responsive. So for making the navbar responsive, what we will do is we'll add a layout builder. Okay, and the layout builder gives us a builder property that gives us the context and the constraints. So these constraints will help us to detect what type of screen we are using. So based on the constraints, we'll give different layout for different type of nav bars. So for example, when we have the desktop version, we'll return this type of nav bar, and when we go to the smaller version of screens, we'll display a smaller nav bar, that is, we'll shift these elements below the Retro Portal Studio title. So for that, what I'm going to do is okay, so here what we're going to do is we'll create an if statement and check if constraints dot max width is greater than 1200. So that is going to be for desktops. Okay, so we'll return a desktop navbar. We'll create this later on, and else if the constraints dot max width is greater than 800, and the constraints dot max width is less than 1200, then it's going to be of tablet size or the medium size screens that you can support. And also we can add an else statement for lesser screens, for example the mobile views. Okay, so we'll return a mobile navbar that we're going to be creating very soon. So I'll add a semicolon there, and for the else I'm also going to return a desktop navbar. We're not going to really care about tablets here. I'm just going to tell you how to create it, and you can create if you want to. So okay, so what we need to do now is we also need to create desktop navbar and mobile navbar. Okay, so for this we're going to create a new class. We'll create a new class of stateless widget that's going to be of desktop navbar. We'll create a new stateless widget and we'll name it desktop navbar. I'm just going to remove this constructor, and in the desktop navbar I'm going to add a new container that is here. And in the children, what I'm going to do is for the desktop we need to add it as a row. Okay, because the elements we need to place them in a row, okay, in a horizontal row. The first element is going to be the name of the website, and all the other elements are going to be on the right hand side. So in the row we're going to create another row that'll hold the other elements. So okay, let's get into it. So the first element that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a row. I'll give it a children, and in the children what I'm going to do is I'm going to add text. And in the text, I'll add the simple text of Retro Portal Studio. And for the style, I'm going to add a text style. And in the text style, I'm going to add font weight. That I'm going to keep it at bold. Font weight dot bold. And the color of the fonts, I'll keep it colors dot white. And the font size, and for the font size I'll keep it at 30. It's just a guess. And also after the text I also need to add another row to handle the other elements of the navbar that are these 4 elements. So I'm also going to keep them in a row. So for this row, I'm going to add children, and I'll add a simple text. And okay, so for the text, I'm going to add home, and I'll add style, and for the style, I'll add a text style. Text style of color, comma, color ratio, colors.white. Okay, so I have the single text here, and I'm going to add another text, comma, another text, and comma, another text. And I think we have 3 buttons here. Okay, we have 3: home, about us, and portfolio. I'll name this about us, and another one that is portfolio. And let's run this project right now, but I don't really have this mobile nav bar. So we'll just create an empty class right now. We'll name it stateless widget and create it as mobile nav bar. And we don't really need this constructor. And for the children, I'm going to keep it empty for now. So in the main.dart file, I'm just going to add, in the columns, I'll add children. And in the children, I'm going to add this nav bar. Okay. So right now, if I run this project, let me remove this extra code. I don't really like this one. And what we need to do is we need to go to the terminal and press R to refresh the code, perform hot restart, and you can see it'll take a bit of time. It's really in the development phase right now. And you can see that we have this nice gradient here, plus we have the text. But right now, the text that we have here is really in a congested way. We want the other items to be on the right-hand side and the Retro Portal Studio to be on the left-hand side. So for that, what we can do is we can give constraints to the container. We can go to the nav bar, and in the nav bar, what we can do now is, for the desktop nav bar, we can add constraints to the container. And in the container, what I will do is I'll add box constraints, and I'll give max width to 1200. And for the row that we have here is I'll add a main axis alignment. Main axis alignment. I'll add main axis alignment dot space between. So if I go to the terminal right now and press R, we can see, okay. So we have this Retro Portal Studio on the left-hand side and all the other elements on the right-hand side, but there is not really any space between the elements themselves. So for adding the space, what I will do right now is I'll add a simple sized box. Okay. And in the sized box, I'm going to add a width of, let's say, 10. I guess 10 will be fine. No, I'll just keep it at 30. 10 will be too less. Comma, and I need the space sized box between the other 2 elements and also after the text to add the button. Okay. So right now, if I run the app, I'll press R and go to the browser, and you can see that we have a nice little space between the elements. And also the elements, the Retro Portal Studio is really touching the sides of the page. So we don't really want that. So for that, what I think we should do is we should go to the desktop nav bar, and we should cover the container with a new padding. And for the padding right now, I'll just go up here, and for the padding, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add edge insets, symmetric. And for the symmetric, I'll add a vertical of 20, I guess. And for the horizontal, I'll add 40, let's say. And I'll just run the code again. Press R and load, and you can see that we have nice little space here to keep the elements separated. And after the portfolio, what we need to do is we need to add a button for the get started button right here. So for that, I'm going to add a material button. So after the sized box, what I can do now is I can add a material button. Material button. And in the material button, what I'll do is I'll add a color of colors dot, what color do we need here is It's reddish pink. I'll just add pink. Colors.pink. Yeah, it's pink. And for the shape, I'll add rounded rectangle border. And for the border, I'll pass in the border radius. That is going to be of border radius dot all. And for the radius, I'll pass radius dot circular. And for that, I'll just pass 15.0. Let's say 20.0 right now. And okay, so after the shape, what I need to do is I need to add an on pressed. We'll just keep it empty right now. And after the on pressed, I'll add a child to add the text to it. And for the text, I'll just paste in get started like it's on the page. And for the style, I'll add a text style, and I'll pass in the color, that is colors.white. Okay, I need to refresh the page. Terminal, refresh. And okay, we have this get started here, but I think the button is too round. But it's fine. Okay, we're just creating a demo right now. But the problem arises when we go close. Okay, we have the responsive navbar. We need to also add the mobile navbar. Okay, so what we can do for that is, so the way we're approaching for the things is we have this main navbar class that is giving you a layout builder, which gives us the context and the constraints. And depending upon the constraints, we check for the max width, and depending upon that, we either return a desktop navbar or a mobile navbar. So right now we have the desktop navbar class created. What we also need to do is we also need to give it a mobile navbar. So as you can see right now, for the desktop navbar, we have the elements laid out in a horizontal row. But obviously, when we shrink the screen, we don't really have that area to display this type of horizontal row. So what we'll do is we'll just shift the elements below the title. Okay, so for that we're going to use a column. So when I come to this mobile navbar, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to in the container itself, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add child, and for the child I'll add a column. And for the column, I'll add a text like we did in the previous class. So okay, so what I'll do is I'll just take the elements. I won't really type them again. I'll just take the elements from this here up till the widget, I think, and I'll pass it here. Let's say okay, so everything is working fine. We have the widget here. So okay, so let's just run it and see what happens. I'll just press R, and in the mobile navbar, when we shift down, yes, we have the elements here. So one more thing that we need to do is, in the case of mobile, we don't really want this get started here. I'll just remove this button from the mobile navbar class, and I'll just shift the elements in the center. So for that, what I need to do is I need to go to this material button and just remove it here completely, like with the sized box also. And in the row, what I need to do is I need to add main axis alignment, and for the main axis alignment center. And now when I press the R button here, you can see that the elements are in the center, but they don't really have a padding, so I'll just add some padding to the row. I'll just wrap the row with some padding, and the padding I'll just increase it to 10. So let's keep it 12. And when I run the code again, okay, so we have nice little padding here, but we also need to add some padding to the column itself. And in the container, okay, we have the padding here. I need to add the padding to this also. So I'll add some padding here. I'll copy the same edge insets, const edge insets. Everything from here we can copy and paste that here. So we're doing this in a sloppy way. What we could have done is we could have added this here below the layout builder, so just don't worry about it. Let me just refresh the page, and we can see that we have nice little menu here. As you can see, when we shift from desktop to mobile, we have this responsive UI. Okay, so the first thing that I think we should do is we should change the font. We have a separate font, different font here, and right now I have Times New Roman, so I don't really like that. So let me take new fonts. The first thing that I'll do, I'll create a new assets file here, not in the lib folder. I'll go to the main project directory. I'll create new assets folder here. In the assets, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder. I'll call it fonts, and for the fonts, I'll just go here to my desktop, and I'll just copy the fonts that I have. I think we should use montserrat. I'll copy that. I'll come here, I'll reveal in Explorer, and the fonts, I'll just paste them. And also with the fonts, I think I should also create a new directory. I should create a new directory. I'll call this images, and I'll copy the images that I have here on the desktop. I'll take the images, I'll take them here and come here and paste them here. Okay, so we have these set up. I have two fonts in the fonts directory and images in the images directory. So I'll just go to the pubspec.yaml file and just uncomment these lines. For the fonts, I'm going to do is I'm just going to uncomment those. And for the fonts, I'll just name it Montserrat. That is the font, RRAT, Montserrat, and in the fonts I have is assets/fonts/ below the TTF Montserrat /regular. That is the regular font. Okay, the bold one. I'll add the bold one first, and I'll just copy the same line and I'll paste it here. Regular. Now let me check the spellings again. Montserrat bold and Montserrat regular in the fonts directory. And also what we need to do is we need to add the image to the images directory. So let the packages get upgraded, and let me go up in the assets. I'll just uncomment this. Okay, so in the assets, what I need to do is let me check the spacing. Okay, the spacing was a bit off. I don't know why they keep it this way, but it's really stressing. And what I will do is I'll just pass in the path assets/images/ add the path that is logo.png, I think it is logo.png, and for the second path I need to put a png here, logo.png, and lp_image.png. Okay, so we have the assets file here. Let the packages upgrade, and let's hope it works. I'll just close the pubspec.yaml file, and I don't really need the logo, by the way. I have added the text here, so I'll just keep it for the sake of it. And what we can do now is we can go to the main file and we can add this to the team data. I'll just add font family, and for the font family I'll add Montserrat, and let's see if it works. Let's just refresh the page, and yeah, you can see that the font's changed, so it's looking really cool right now. Fine. So the upper portion of the website is complete. We have this nice looking nav bar here that is completely responsive. You can add more effects to this, but I'm just keeping this short for the tutorial purposes. And let's start with the bottom portion. Okay, so right now the problem that we have is we have this extra white space right here. And the problem that I think that is we have this in the navbar we have added this 1200 here for the box constraints that I don't think is working in our favor. So I'll just remove this line for now, and I'll just reset the page. And okay, so yeah, the problem is gone. It was basically the constraints property that I used in the container for the navbar. So right now it's working completely fine, and if I just decrease the size of the navbar, and yeah, it works fine. So there is no issue with that. I'll just maximize the screen, and what we need to do now is we need to create this bottom portion, and we'll be using a column for the smaller devices, and we'll be using the row for the bigger devices. So we'll be following a relatively similar approach for this. We'll create a new directory. In the lib folder, I'll just create a new folder. I'll just name it landing page. And in the landing page, I'll just create a new file that is called landing page.dart. And in this, I'll just create a new stateless widget, and I'll name it landing page. And I material don't really require this, and I'll just import material dart file. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to look at the web page, and we're gonna put the elements in a row when they're displayed on the bigger device, for example, a PC or a laptop or something. And when we have a smaller device, we're going to shift the elements in a column. So basically, we're going to use a similar approach to the nav bar, but we're going to change a few things right now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this landing page. I have this child element. And in the child, we'll use the same approach as we'll get this part here. We'll get the layout builder. We don't really need to write it again. I'll just copy this, and I'll just come here and paste this in the return. But what I don't really need right now is I don't really need these constraints. We'll check if it is more than 800. And for the smaller device, we'll just use the else statement, because we don't really need any other thing right now, because we only have 2 elements on the screen. So okay, so for the first element, what I'll do is I'll just create a row. If the device is a desktop or anything more than 800 pixels, I'll just add a new row, and in the row I'll add a main axis alignment of main axis alignment dot center to keep the elements in the center. And for the children, what I will do is I'll just create a new page children method. Okay, because what I'm thinking right now is we only need same type of elements in both the web pages. The only difference will be that in the column they will be upside down. They will be aligned vertically, and for the bigger device, they will be aligned in a horizontal way. So we can pass the same array of elements to both the devices. So we don't really need to create 2 separate classes for those. So I'm just going to create this new method that is the page children here. And also here, I'm going to pass the same method, page children. Okay. And now what we're going to do is we're going to come up here and create this new method that is going to return a list of widget, and I'm going to name it page children, and okay. So it's going to return a list of widget that is going to contain the first element of a container. And in the container, what I'll do is I'll create a new child of column. So right now I'm just creating this left-hand portion of the website that says website developers and this text and this button. So I'll just minimize the code. I'll go to this column and I'll add cross-axis alignment to keep everything aligned at the left. That is cross-axis alignment dot start. And here I'll add children. The first element that is going to be a text, and for the text I'll add website /n developers to keep the developers word on the next line. I'll add a new style here, and for the style I'm going to add a new text style, and for the text style I think I'll need a font weight that I'll keep font weight to bold. and font size to 50. I think 50. I think 40 would be fine. 40. And we also need the color to be white. Color to be colors.white. I think that's going to be fine. And also we need some text below it. Let's add text. And let's see what the text is. It is, we have taken each and every project handed over to us. Okay. So we have taken each and every project handed over to us as a challenge, which has helped us achieve a high project success rate. Oh, high project success rate. Yeah, it was a tedious thing copying this line, but yeah, that's fine. I'll add a new style, and in the style I'll add a new text style. And the text style, I'm gonna add a pause the font. Okay, we can pass the font size. We'll keep it at 16.0, and the color, we're gonna colors.white. So at this point, I think it should look fine. Oh, we also need to add the landing page there, and we have not yet. I think the function name is different. Page children. Okay, I don't really need this. Here I need to add a column. And column for the children, I'll add this method. Sorry, it was my bad. And for the landing page, I'll add this here. In the main page, I'll add the landing page, and let's, okay, we have the error here. I need to pass in a semicolon for the method, and I'll just press R and start the app. It's going to take a bit of time. Okay, so we have the text aligned to the left. We have not yet added the second element to the page, so let's do that first. Let's add another element, and the first thing that I have in mind is I need to add a bit of padding to this text. So what I will do is I'll just wrap this text with a new padding. I'll just add a bit of symmetrical padding to it. Symmetrical, and we all need to add a vertical padding that is going to be of, let's keep it 20. And we also need to add a button, so I'll just create a new material button. And for the button, what I think we should do is we should add a color, colors.white, and other than this, I'll add a shape that we used there. We used a rounded rectangle border, and for the border radius, I'll add border radius dot all, and for the radius dot circular, we'll add it at let's say 20.0. Yeah, it's gonna be fine. And we'll add a simple on pressed to add the ripple effect. And for the child, I'll add new text that is gonna be our packages. I think this was the text there, our packages, yeah. And for the text, what I can do is I can add a new style. And for this style, I'll add text style. I'll add a new color. That is going to be colors.red. Okay, this is looking fine. Let me just run the page. I'll run the page again. And we have this our packages button here. Okay, so I also need to add a bit of padding to this. So what I will do is I'll just go to this text and I'll just wrap it with a new padding. And for the padding, I also need to keep it symmetrical. I'll just add some vertical and horizontal padding. I'll just keep the vertical to 20.0 and the horizontal to 40.0. Okay. And also, okay, let's just start with this. Let's reload the page, and yeah, it's looking fine. We have a bit of less bezels here, but it also looks good. So what we need to do now is we need to add the image here. And for that, what we can do is, other than the column that we have added, it ends here. What we can do is we can also add a new image. And for that, I'm going to call image.asset. And from the assets, I'm going to pass the path. Let's check what the path was. I think it was assets. It's starting from assets. Assets slash, it was images, slash LP underscore images dot PNG. I think this is it. Let's see what the error is. Here, image.assets. Oh, sorry. Let's see what the error is. In the container, I don't really need to add it in the container. I need to add it to, okay, we need to add it here. Okay, so for the image, what I can do is, let's just run the code right now. I'll just run it, and okay, so there is some problem with the naming of the asset file as I can think of it. So because the page that we have loaded here is not really showing the image, and you can see that there is some black shadow there, and also there is an error that the image cannot be loaded. Let me just give a width and height here. Let me just give some width, and we'll just keep the width at 400 for now and height to 400. We won't use this width and height for the final one because we need to create that responsive. Okay, so let me see what the hell is going on here. So we have this image here, and we also need to give some width to the other container that is here. For this container, I'll add a new width. So what I will do right now is I'll just go to the page children, and depending upon the constraints, I'll give a width to the page children widget here. So what I'll do is I'll pass in constraints dot biggest, constraints dot biggest dot width, and for the row we'll just keep it at half. So I'll just pass in by 2, and when we go here, I'll just pass in constraints dot biggest dot width, because for the column will be used when we are on the small device. So we want the image to take the full device width with some padding, of course. And for the row, we want the image to take half the place. Okay, as you can see, the image takes half the page, and the text takes half the page also. So what we'll do here is I'll just add a double to the arguments, double width. And for the container, I'll pass the same width. And for the image, I'll just pass in the same width. And I won't pass the height, of course, because it will take that automatically. I'll just refresh the page, and yeah, the image is not being loaded. And we'll look at the image problem in some time. I'll just add some padding to the landing page. I'll just go to the landing page here, or the main.dar file, and in the landing page I'll just wrap this landing page with the new padding. We'll just keep it symmetrical, and for the vertical I'll add 20.0, and for the horizontal I'll add 40.0, like we do in most cases for this website. I'll just refresh the page, and yeah, we have nice little padding here. So we need to do something about the image because the image is not being loaded from the assets. And let's see what we can do. Okay, so let me just take this logo example for now. Let me just replace the image. I think it should work. I'll just pass in logo.png, and if it doesn't work, there is some problem. And I perform the hot restart, and yeah, the logo is working fine. So let me just put in the other one. Let me pass in LP underscore what is the name, lp_image.png, and I'll just refresh it again, and yeah, this time it works. So okay, the image is working now. What we need to do now is we need to fix the scroll for this page, because the page is not scrolling right now. So what I'll do for that is I'll just go to the main.dart file, and in the column I'll just wrap this column with a new widget that is going to be single child scroll view. Single child scroll view, and for the child I'm going to add this column. I'll just refresh that and see what happens, and yeah, we're having this nice looking page. We have a few text here with the heading, a text and a button, and we have a nice nav bar and the image. So when I just shrink the page to come here, okay, so we need to add some padding to the image from the top. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the landing page for the image. I'll just wrap that with a new padding, and for the padding I'll add symmetrical, and for the symmetrical I'm going to add a vertical padding that is going to be a 40.0. Let's take a look at it. I'll just refresh that, and okay, it's looking good. I think 40 is a bit too much. I'll just add 20. I'll just refresh the page again, and yeah, it looks fine. And when I shrink the page, there is enough distance between those. I can also add some distance, some margin to this our packages button, but you get the point. So basically Flutter is going at a rapid pace, and we can hope to see major improvements in the Flutter Web SDK in the coming year. And there are some minor drawbacks in the Flutter Web SDK at this point. For example, if you click the refresh button, it takes a bit of time to load itself, and when it loads itself it works fine. And moreover, it is currently supported in Chrome. It's in Chrome only. Like, it can work on the other browsers also, but the major support is for Chrome right now. So okay, so I hope you like this tutorial, and if you want to learn much about Flutter, you can check out other videos on my channel. And if you have suggestions for new videos, please hit the like button for this video and leave your suggestions in the comment section below. I'll be going through the comments and replying to those who have any questions. So thank you for watching. See you next time. Peace.